everyone. Welcome to another session of Conversations with AiR. Today, we are discussing one of the most fundamental topics, the human mind. Welcome, AiR. So good to have you with us. So we've been receiving many questions about the human mind because many people seem to believe that mind is the most powerful, it's the most supreme part of a human being. It's the king. What is your take on it?
You're right. People think that their mind is everything. People think that their mind is king. But this is because they live in ignorance. They do not realize that the mind is a thief. The mind is a rascal. It's like a monkey. All the time it is jumping from thought to thought, from one thought to another thought. The mind is powerful, no doubt. But first let us understand what makes up the mind. We commonly think of the mind as the mind. But before you go further, let's understand what is the mind. This part of me is my physical, gross body. It's like the hardware of a computer.
Right.
The mind is the software of the computer. It programs the computer to act. The body, the gross body, has a subtle body, and we think it's the mind. Actually, it is broken up into four parts: the mind, the memory, the intellect, and the ego. All four are invisible, but they seem to be there. Just like you feel, and you know, and you think that you have a mind. I too think I have a mind. But have you seen your nose?
Yes.
Your eyes?
Yes.
Your ears? You have seen. And have you seen an X-ray of a heart, a brain, a kidney?
Yes.
But have you ever seen a mind?
We all believe it's in the brain.
That's the brain. But there is no mind. If you try to find the mind, you can't. So therefore, the story of the mind is such that I call it a rascal. In one of my books I have written, the mind is a rascal.
Continuing on the same lines, there's this famous saying, I think, therefore I am. So, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, there are in fact two sayings. One is what you said, I think, therefore I am. And the other, I am, therefore I think.
Okay.
There are two world famous sayings, right? Both have a different meaning. So, I think, therefore I am. Because if I don't think, then I am not there. And the other way, if I am, therefore I have to think. Because I exist, therefore I think. What does this mean? Putting it in shape. It means that every human being thinks. Every human being has a so-called mind. But actually, what is a mind? It is just a bundle of thoughts. This bundle of thoughts, when we put it together, appears as the mind. If somebody asks me what is the mind, I would say the mind is like a popcorn machine. Have you seen a popcorn machine? It pops corn, pop, 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 it pops corn. The mind pops thoughts. It's a thought factory. And what is amazing is that the mind pops a thought practically every second. That means up to 50 thoughts a minute. And this can actually come to 50,000 thoughts a day. Do you know that 50,000 thoughts a day, you know what that does? That causes stress, that causes anxiety, that causes us to worry, because the mind is constantly like a monkey, jumping, thinking. And people don't realize it. They think mind is king. No, mind is not a king. The mind is the cause of all suffering.
Great. So for the sake of our users, I would like to delve a little deeper into this. If I keep mind on the table, memory on the table, intellect and ego, are they all similar or different or subsets of the mind?
No. All the four domains of the subtle body. We human beings call all this the mind. What do we think? We think that the mind and the memory is the same. They're not the same. They're different functions. The mind produces thoughts. The memory keeps it in memory. So it's not the producer of thought. The intellect is a different domain. It's the one that discriminates right, wrong, good, bad, black, white, yes, no. The third domain of the subtle body is called the intellect. So if you see, each of these has a different function. The mind has a function to produce thought. The memory has a function to remember thought. The intellect has a function to discriminate thought. And the ego is completely different. The ego is what creates your existence. You say, I am Nalini, I am a lady, I have done PhD, I am an Indian. The ego talks of I, me, mine, this is my house, this is my car. The ego is the one, the subtle body that creates our identity. And that's why we suffer, because of the agony of the ego.
Okay, let's move on to your favorite space, spirituality. How does the mind either contribute, take us towards spirituality, or take us away?
The mind produces thought. It produces both kinds of thought, good thought, bad thought, positive thought, negative thought.
Right.
Without the mind or without thought, you can't even think spiritual. If you want to think, for example, in spirituality, we think I am the divine spirit. I am not the body, I am not the mind. Even that is a thought. But the mind, left uncontrolled, is like a wild horse. It just jumps to the past and then it jumps to the future. It makes us live with regret, it makes us live with fear. It doesn't let us contemplate on a thought. So if one wants to be spiritual, one has to realize that the mind must be controlled, must be transcended. The mind must be used only to produce the right thought through the intellect. Therefore, if we don't use the intellect, then we cannot evolve spiritually. If we make the mind the king, we are doomed. Because the mind and the ego, I call it me, M-E, the mind and the ego, this makes us go wild. It makes us desire, it makes us crave, it takes us into all kinds of fields that destroy our spirituality. Now, what do we need to do? We need to contemplate, therefore we need to think, but we need to contemplate with the intellect. We need to become conscious. We need to become aware of the truth. We have to overcome ignorance. So all this is on that journey of spirituality. And it is very important to realize the role of the mind. So if you let the mind continue to think 50 thoughts a minute, 50,000 thoughts a day, you're doomed. Even before you listen to me, your mind is thinking something else. And the mind is triggered by the 5 senses of the body. How does the mind work? If your eyes, nose, ears, tongue and hands are shut, if all the 5 senses are shut, then the mind is alone. But with these 5 horses, the mind goes haywire. Because all these 5 senses are triggering different thoughts to the mind. To grow spiritually, to evolve spiritually, we have to slow down the mind. We have to slow down the pace of this production of thought. The thought factory must be calmed. I call it MTR, the mental thought rate. We must reduce the mental thought rate. If we don't reduce the mental thought rate, then the mind is going pop, 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 pop. We just cannot contemplate on the spirit, on the Atma, on the soul. If one wants to go on a path of spirituality, one must calm down the mind, control the mind. Remember this, if you want the intellect to work, the intellect cannot work when there are 50 thoughts a minute. It's too much for the intellect to discriminate 50 thoughts a minute. The mind bulldozes the intellect. So you calm down the mind. The moment your mind is calm, the intellect gets triggered. It starts functioning.
So this is more of a personal question. I have been curious. Would you say that You have mastered the mind, and that's how you've been able to create this aura of spirituality around you. And how have you done it? I mean, because I find it very difficult to control my thoughts.
As long as we are alive, it's very difficult to say that we have mastered the mind. Because the mind is a rascal. It's like a monkey. You master it. It seems like it's under control. The moment you turn, it's jumping again. Why does this happen? I told you that the mind is connected to the five senses. So you think you've mastered the mind. You may be a big Mahatma or a spiritual saint, but your eye falls on something. That creates a thought. What happened to your mastered mind? You're lost. Therefore, they say in this world of spiritual awareness or consciousness, one has to be very, very conscious and disciplined. Mm-hmm. One has to have a lot of control on their mind. And as long as you're alive, there's no question of having mastered the mind. Okay. You've got to master the mind every day. It's a daily exercise. Every day that you live, the mind will give some crazy thoughts. The mind will have desires, cravings. Of course, you will transcend it, you will make it slow, you will be able to go beyond it. Yes, the process goes on. But you will never be able to make the mind or the ego, as one would call it, dead. No. You can't kill the mind. You can't kill the ego. You can transcend it. You can try to go over it, but it's still active underneath. And if you don't control the mind and the ego, it will flare up.
So it's not that you get better with time. It's something that you have to do every single day.
You have to do every single day, but it gets better with time. As you master your mind and your ego, you become the master. See, one has to be the master. Either the mind is the master or the intellect is the master. If the intellect is the master and the mind is trained to be calm, then it thinks less thoughts.
Moving on, AiR, I don't know if you've seen on social media, there's a sudden trend of many spiritual philosophers talking about living mindfully. So, what do you think about that?
This mindfulness itself is confusing. Because when a common person thinks of mindfulness, they come and ask me, what is it to be mindful? Actually, mindful does not mean mindful, it means mind empty. You become mindful. What we are trying to talk of is you become conscious. So right. See, it's just a matter of using the right word.
Right.
Mindful, the word mindful can relate to the mind being full, but no. When we become mindful, we become conscious. We become conscious when we shut off the mind, when we make the mind empty, when we put the mind to sleep. When the mind is calm, then only we can become mindful of who we are, of what is our purpose. We become conscious. So actually, mindfulness that is spoken about, mostly I think in Buddhism, is about being conscious. It happens in meditation. It happens even when we are walking around in our day-to-day life, but we become conscious. We become mindful of who we are. We become mindful of our mind. We become mindful of our cravings, of our desires. We become mindful of the surroundings. But then I would rather use the word, we become conscious. Because then that gives a better understanding.
Right, okay. So something very interesting that I came across in your book, The Mind is a Rascal, is that you've asked us to kill your mind. So how exactly do we do that?
See, when you talk about killing the mind, as I said, you can't kill the mind. First of all, the mind you can't find. When we say in a book, kill your mind before your mind kills you, it's just a quote to say that if you don't control your mind, if you don't take charge of your mind will take charge of you. That's what we're trying to say. The mind can actually destroy you. The mind can create imaginary fears. You know what is fear? F-E-A-R, false expectation appearing real. But the mind creates fear. There's no danger, but the mind imagines. In the middle of the night, with a small sound, you think it's a tiger, you think it's a snake. How could there be a tiger and snake be around you? But the mind can cook up such thoughts. Then the mind also takes you to the past. Something is over 5 years back, 10 years back. It makes you nurse it and curse it and rehearse it. The mind. If you want to be peaceful, you must be in the present moment. How are you going to be in the present moment? You kill the mind. It doesn't mean actually you take a knife or a bullet and kill the mind. What it means is you quieten the mind. You, for a better word, you put your mind to sleep. Not actually going physically to sleep, but you calm your mind. You try to switch off your mind. We use a term in the book, kill the mind before the mind kills you. But this is what it means.
Right. So, since we're talking about killing and dying and all of that, what exactly happens when I die to my mind? Because my body is going to be here. And what happens to the mind then?
See, this is a spiritual question. Let me jump straight into it. So, who dies? The body dies. So, the body, the physical body, suppose it's Mr. John. So, we say, John died. And we have this habit of saying, where is John? Oh, John is no more. Where is John? Oh, he passed away. He departed. He expired. What do you mean? Doesn't the whole world say it?
Right.
They say, this is not John. This is the corpse, the dead body of John. John died. He departed. What we are trying to say is that the person who was alive is gone. Now, who is that person who was alive? This body is just a hardware. The software is me, M-E, the mind and the ego. Of course, it includes the memory and the intellect. The subtle body is said to leave this body and is said to be reborn.
Okay.
Now, there's a debate. What is the proof of rebirth? One thing is very clear, that the person is dead.
Yes.
If the person is dead, what's the difference between a person who's dead and a person who's alive? Something has left the body.
Correct.
The quick answer to that is two things leave the body. The software and the power supply. That is the mind and the soul. We're not talking about the soul right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complicated thing to bring in now. So leave the soul aside. It's a power supply to the computer, hardware and software. The body is dead, hardware is dead. The software, the mind and the ego has an unsettled account. We do so many actions and we cannot escape. There is a law, the law of karma, the law of action and reaction. A law that states that as you sow, so shall you reap. Now, based on that law, we cannot escape at death. I cannot be a murderer and a rapist and a thief and everything and then die and escape. No. The universal law of action and reaction states I have to pay back for it. Who pays back for it? The body finishes its journey. It becomes dust. It's either cremated, buried, burnt, whatever. But me, the mind and the ego, is reborn. Now the question, what's the guarantee that the mind and the ego is reborn? It's very simple. A, it's a law that we have to compensate our actions. B, some people are born fortunate and some people are born unfortunate. Why? A young child is born blind. What has the child done? One child is born in a home of a millionaire, the other is born in a slum. So there is something connected to a birth which is related to past actions. So if you contemplate, you use your mind to contemplate, then you realize that death is not the end, it's just a bend. The person is reborn in another body with a past karma, with a past unsettled actions. We can have a long discussion on this, right? But that's the answer to the question. And just to tell you that these days, because the world has evolved so much, some young children who are 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 8 years, they're able to play the piano.
Right.
They're able to recite the Bhagavad Gita. They're able to, and we call it instinct. No. This is a past memory, the past mind that is reborn. So even science is getting to accept the fact that the mind doesn't get destroyed. The body dies, but the me, the mind and the ego is reborn based on our past actions.
Great. Thank you, AiR. Just one last thing as a key takeaway message What would you tell us commoners who struggle with our thoughts and have so much stress? How do we cope with the, ever popping thoughts of the mind?
I have a simple advice. Remind yourself, you have a mind, but you are not the mind. Your mind is a thought factory. It produces thought. Don't let it produce negative thoughts. Emotions are the raw material of thoughts. If you want your mind to produce positive thoughts, fill your life with positive emotions. Faith, love, hope, courage, confidence, forgiveness, compassion. These are positive emotions. Don't fill your life with negative emotions. Fear, worry, hate, revenge, anger. Even the hearing these negative emotions makes you feel sick. Having said that, first fill your mind with positive emotions. So you try to produce positive thoughts. Not enough. Calm down your mind. Slow down your MTR, your mental thought rate. Put your intellect in charge of your thoughts. Make your intellect discriminate. Don't let your mind shuttle from a past that is gone to a future not yet born. Become the master of your mind. You are not the mind, you have a mind. If you want to live peacefully and blissfully, take charge of your mind. Don't let the rascal, don't let the monkey create stress and anxiety. That's the way to live. That's the way to have peace and joy and bliss.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for these wonderful, wonderful thoughts. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you at the next conversation with Ed. Thank you.